for March 2022. Today's date is March 17th. It's 6 o'clock. Happy St. Patrick's Day and happy March Madness Day for those of you who are sports fans. Mr. Ray, will you call the attendance roll, please?
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Here. Let's stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I need a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
No discussion. Let's call the roll, Mr. Ray.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs? Yes. Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Now I need a motion for approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting from February 17th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Seeing no discussion, I'll call the roll, please.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Need a motion to approve the minutes of the special board meeting, March 8th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. We now have some presentations. Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you, Mr. President Miranda and Board of Education. It's again my pleasure and privilege to present to you some highlights of the arts throughout our fine district. A lot going on. This is an exceptional and busy 3 weeks for the fine and performing arts. We hosted nearly 40 color guards and winter percussion ensembles from throughout the tri-state region at Milford High School over the past weekend. I'm going to touch in a minute on our spring musical that's happening this weekend, and then next week on our choir, our high school choirs make their trip that they make once every 4 years. They're headed to Nashville with some incredible performances. So a lot going on in the arts. But tonight, I have an opportunity to recognize two exceptional Milford High School students. So Ellen and Sarah, if you wouldn't mind coming up, and Dr. Daly, our high school band director, is here as well. About a month and a half ago, Sarah and Ellen had the opportunity to represent Milford schools, and specifically Milford High School, in the OMEA State Honor Band. They were one of 64 students that were selected from throughout the state. Hundreds of students auditioned, and only the finest musicians were asked to be a participant. To our knowledge, it is the first time in school history that Milford High School has ever sent 2 students to the honor band in the same year. And being selected for honor band is an incredible accomplishment. But in addition to that, Ellen was named first chair clarinetist, which makes her arguably the best high school clarinetist in the state of Ohio. And Sarah was named second chair on euphonium, which my wife always tells me is the baby tuba, but baritone euphonium. So they had an opportunity to brave the snow and ice, head up to Cleveland, Ohio, and perform with that band. More than their musical accomplishments, these are two of the finest young adults that we have at Milford High School, and it's my absolute pleasure to recognize Ellen and Sarah for their outstanding accomplishment. And then before the board members take your seats again, I'm actually going to invite you, you don't have to, but I'm going to invite you to come around the front. This weekend, we open the spring musical of The Little Mermaid at Milford High School. There's a performance Friday night at 7:30, Saturday at 2 o'clock, and Saturday at 7:30. However, I am pleased and unfortunately have to inform everyone that our Friday night performance is officially sold out. So that is an incredible testament to what these students have been working on. If you follow us on Twitter, or if you've had the opportunity or will this weekend to see the sets and the costuming, the work that the students have done, the students constructed all of the sets for this performance. And when you see them, it will just absolutely blow your mind. If you would like tickets, you can go to showtix4u.com. Just search for Milford. and you will find there, you can reserve your tickets. It's general admission for the Saturday shows. And we have Mr. Derringer, the director, here this evening, and some of his student performers are going to wow you with She's in Love from The Little Mermaid.
She's busy and she's dreamy, her head's up in the phone, her eyes are got no gleamy, it's like there's no one home. She floats away the days, open on a coastal shelf. You ask her where she's going, she giggles like a fool. She barely sticks her toe down at the tidal pool. More than just a face it, she's just not herself. If she ill or insane, is it water on the brain? What has got her bothered so? It's the bend, it's the flu. Gosh, I wish we had a clue. Oh wait, oh dear, good grief, it's clear she's in love. She's in love. Pounding hearts, ringing bells. Look, I think she's even wearing brand new shells. She's in love. Love is divine. That girl's on Sandbar night. Lord above, got to be. She's in love. Hey, Flounder, have you noticed anything weird about you know who? You mean Ariel? I'll say she acts like she don't see. She doesn't even speak. She treats me like the genie left off from last week. Leave her late at night, tossing in her roach bed. Shoot, shoot, shoot. She shoot the ashes napper. Shoot the issue drop. Shoot right up to tapper. She lays there like a lot. Has shirt is not shoot by. Shoot, shoot with her hat. She has lost her head. And she's even has a sort of glow. What on earth could it be? Any hammerhead can see outside that glow. That's blue. Oh no, she's alone. She's lived and never fails. All hot beneath her scales. Well, oh, well, oh, well, don't you wonder who's the lucky seafood dish? She's found the deep sea home. And now she's as good as some. See her grin. Got to be love she's in. On someone swimming in the sea. K-A-I-S-S-Y-N-G. Her cheeks could not blush pinker. She's got the line and sinker. Crushed out, wished on, worked up, far gone. Knocked out, hard-hit, empty. That's it. She's in love. 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 Plain to see, no mistakes. Look at those moonbeams. Obvious what they must be. Symptoms of she's in love. She's in love. She's in shoot, shoot, yeah, she's in love. Yeah.
Bravo, bravo. These are the Murr sisters and Flounder from The Little Mermaid. They would love to see you this weekend. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, tickets are available at Showtix for you. All of your ticket money goes directly back into the program in future shows. So hope to see everybody this weekend, and thank you for the opportunity to highlight our student performers.
They're now back to dress rehearsal, I'm guessing. Mr. Kaufman? Thinking they are. They're ready for dress rehearsal now, right?
Yes, they have a long night ahead. They will probably be rehearsing until about 11 o'clock tonight. We've been involved in theater. Tech Week is this week, so they've got a long night ahead of them, but they'll be ready for opening night.
That's great.
Hard act to follow. But I brought with me tonight a couple special guests to present to you about this picnic table in front of you. So I wanted to make some special highlights about the things that we're living in our world. We're finishing up Milford Means All Week at Milford High School, and students there are celebrating inclusivity overall for all adults and students, different clubs, different nationalities, and all different aspects of life are celebrated this week. And it's been a pretty cool week, rounding out with the pep rally tomorrow. But more importantly, I want to share with you some highlights in this video, and then Mr. Yards will share a little bit more. First up, we have Unified Sports. Unified Sports brings together athletes with unique needs, together with typical peers, to compete against other unified teams. This spring, we are bringing back Unified Track from the 2019 school year, after a short break due to COVID. Our athletes will compete at the Milford home track meet, paired with an athlete partner for support at the track meet. Next up is Eagle Eatery. Once a month, students in the Talents program at Milford High School run Eagle Eatery, a small carry-out cafe. Life skills practice in the Eagle Eatery includes sequencing steps in an activity, fulfilling an order, practicing social skills, sharing, peer-to-peer work cooperation, number sense, reading comprehension, and hygiene when it comes to practicing food preparation skills. Through an array of academic work, hands-on projects, and specialized discussion groups, a group of Milford High School students from our flight program build and master skills necessary for healthy, successful futures. I will have Ryan Yards share with you about the special project you see here right in front of you.
Today I brought up a student, Leroy, with me. Ryan Yards, teacher of the flight program. Wanted to bring this table to you guys today for a few reasons. This week is Milford Means All, and for our class that means we come to the table, we have a voice, and we make a difference the best we can. In flight, Mrs. Cole, Mr. Williams, and Miss Gray and myself all work towards helping our students through some serious life barriers to get a solid education, as all our kids are promised a portrait of an eagle. Aside from working on just academics, though, we do a little bit more. We are overcoming obstacles all the time, but we pride ourselves in giving the kids experience of life skills. And what we have in front of you is a picnic table that Leroy will explain more. We started the project last year. We got funded by Ms. Kolb and Mr. Kolb. They donated it. And then we started brainstorming ideas for this year, currently. And I'm going to let Leroy take over and kind of explain that.
So, this is a table that I built with my classmates and Mr. Yards and Miss Kolb. Miss Williams, also Miss Gray, teaches us a lot about life. He wants us to know how important it is in the world. You may see this is a table. It is a little bit different looking. The ends extend so as a child who is in a wheelchair can sit at it with his or her friends. We also built an example table last year that this year we wanted it to mean more. Mr. Yards helped us gather information for each elementary school to see how big our impact could be with a project like this. We found that building this special table would each help 8 to 10 kids be able to better hang out with their friends. And I hope you see the value of this table and what it taught me along the way as we built it. If you didn't know, I am the portrait of an eagle. Thank you.
Thank you. the checkered tablecloth here and a picnic basket. This is good enough, though. That's great. I'm going to move right ahead. Middle school update. Superintendent Spicer.
President Miranda, members of the board, the middle school update for today is just that on Monday, we do have our selection process for the architect. We do have 3 architects, VSWC, SHP, and Immersion Design. There are 4 scoring sheets that will take place, 2 from the Ohio Facilities Commission and 2 from the district. From the district side, I will be there, Mr. Ray will be there, Jeff Johnson, Paul Daniels, Mr. Miranda will be there, and Mrs. Chestnut will be there. Those 2 board members are on our buildings and grounds, so they'll be present. I did invite Misty Getz, our current junior high principal, to be there. She has a prior commitment, so she cannot make it, and Paul Daniels, our director of secondary curriculum. So hopefully by the end of the day, we will have an architect selected. Those scoring sheets, they are public record through the Ohio Facilities Commission, so if someone wants to see those scoring sheets, they can certainly request those through the Ohio Facilities Commission. Also, we will do a similar process with our construction manager. We do not have a date yet set for that. Similar process, as I said, 4 scoring sheets, 2 for the Ohio Facilities Commission and 2 for us. And then also the 3 construction manager firms are HGC, Conger, and Turner. And that is it for now. And once we get through this process, we have our architect. That will be, we'll start that design phase process, which is an opportunity for everyone to give input, which is what we promised, and anyone that wants to do so will have the opportunity to do that.
So as a board, we will, next board meeting, we would approve the architect and engineer, and probably the board meeting after that, which would be May.
As Jeff had fingers crossed back there, yes,
does,
we are
fingers
hoping to
crossed.
have that for you
That's-
at the next meeting.
That's the plan, that's the goal right now. And then in May, we would do the same thing with the construction company.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any comments?
I just want to say I appreciate all the transparency here, Jeff. I think that we've blown the lid off of really the process of selection. I think some in the community didn't realize how involved the state is in both of these selections, both the architect and the construction manager. So just hats off to that, and I'll encourage anyone that's even remotely interested to step in, read some of the scoring, and if you have questions, let's ask. So, yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, let's move right along. That brings us to our first public participation. Do we have any for the first group?
I do have one for the first group.
Okay.
Michael Lehrman.
Is this on? All right, hi, I'm Michael Lehrman at 6334 Vantaggio Circle. I want to talk tonight about the appropriations item that's on the agenda, and I know it's a recurring item that's on the agenda just about every month. But specifically last month at the board meeting, the regular board meeting, there's a little bit of airtime dedicated to it. A vote was held on the appropriations budget last month, and 2 board members voted against this issue, specifically due to concerns about any possible strings that might be attached to ESSER funding. So ESSER funding, again, is this federal allocation of money that comes in the form of the coronavirus relief funds. And a community member shared at the time that one of those board members, in fact, actually sits on the finance committee, had made some remarks to that same effect a week prior, still felt the need to vote no on such funding. So, and again, the community and everyone is aware, these permitted uses of the ESSER funding, any restrictions of this funding, is readily available online through different federal and state education agencies. And so I think it's concerning that someone on the finance committee of our Board of Education is unable to look into this item for themselves. A second board member also voted no, stated some similar reasons, and so I reached out to them both after the meeting and asked if they could share, why they felt the need to oppose the ESSER funding. I received an email back from board member Mr. Combs pretty quickly. speaking about some conspiracy theories on how ESSER funds might be used to forcibly vaccinate and mask our children. Again, I couldn't emphasize this enough. That is absolutely false. And he took the opportunity to complain about the generic tax burden that something like federal ESSER funds would put on the community. And board member Ms. Nolan, who's not here tonight, was unable to respond to my request for last month. So I think voting against such an appropriations resolution is just frankly alarming. I mean, this is really the budget. It's $95 million that funds our entire school district. And so sort of, threatening to defund our school district over a small piece of that pie that, quite frankly, those two board members apparently don't understand how it works, it seems kind of disconcerting. So I'm asking again if those board members would like to share with the community any specific concerns they have, valid concerns about this ESSER funding and why that would lead them to vote no and basically try and defund the district. I'd like to hear that, and I think the community would deserve to hear that as well. And I hope we don't see continued repeated no votes on appropriations resolutions in the future. And I did want to make a really quick plug. There's a Thought Exchange website set up by Superintendent Spicer and a Facebook Live event, I think later next week, to talk more specifically about how the district wants to specifically use these funds, again, with the current rules and guidelines they have in place for positive impact they can have on the community. So I invite people to give your input there if you wish. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Going to move on to the treasurer's report. Mr. Brian Ray, please.
Thank you, Mr. Miranda. First item is the approval of the board reports for the month ending February 28th, 2022.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the board report ending February 28th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
A couple items that I did want to point out. We are almost 67% of the year completed. Our general fund is currently sitting at a little over 61%. We did see a large cash increase this month due to the bond sale. So obviously when we pay off the notes at the end of this month, that cash balance next month will go down significantly. We did end the month with a little over $29 million in the bank. We do have two investment accounts, one for our regular general fund account and one specifically for the money that was raised off the bonds. The regular account, we received almost $21,000 in the month in interest. We're $178,000 for the year. And on the bond retirement fund, $1,100 on the month, $8,300 on the year. That interest off of those bonds will be used can be added to the construction of the building. So any money we raise off of those funds will go back into the building project fund.
And only there, correct?
Only there.
And therefore
It is restricted.
lower what we collect on taxes? Or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. That one will not.
Okay.
So, that's all I have.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, Mr. Ray.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
The next item is the approval of the appropriations resolution.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the appropriations resolution.
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
We are making 3 increases on this appropriation resolution. The first one is in the bond retirement fund. Since we did sell the bonds in February, those bonds, the money raised on those bonds will have to pay off the note. So there's a significant amount there. Plus, there's a first interest payment on the new bonds that will occur in June. So we need to appropriate the money so we can make those 2 payments. The other 2 items are in the 004 fund and the 010 fund. These are the monies that was received from the notes for the construction of the building. As Mr. Spicer mentioned, we're going through the architect interviews. So when we bring a contract to the board, we wanted to make sure that we already set aside appropriations so that we have the money to issue a contract when we come in April.
Okay, further discussion?
Just a quick comment about ESSER funding. I wanted to share with the community about some of the appropriations in my response to a request on email. First, I do believe that the ESSER funds can be used in a fantastic way for our school district. My concern, and the reason I voted no last time I mentioned before, is because I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper about strings attached. Strings attached to me happens with just about every bit of government funding, both state and federal level. you have to qualify for these funds in order to spend them. There's a reason why they're only to be spent on certain things. I wanted to dig a little bit deeper, and one of the things that I learned is that the CDC, we are held responsible by the CDC to follow guidelines. If the CDC requires us to do certain things that goes against parent choice, I have a problem with those strings. So I wanted to make that very clear. On the second point, on the second point about the funding itself, I want to make everybody understand how I view government state funding. This is not free dollars. This is taxpayer money. There's nothing free about any way that this school is funded or any other public school in the state. So I just wanted to make that clear, and I made that very clear in my response to the request, that there's nothing free about it. So I just like to really pay as much attention as I can to taxpayer dollars and be as fiscally responsible as we can be. ESSER funds are being spent in a lot of ways for the good of this community and for the good of the students. And one of the reactions that we have currently up for the next week, I applaud the administration, the state requires us for ESSER 3 to have an impactful and engaging conversations with stakeholders. That means you. So for the next week, in response to some of that, which we did not have meaningful engagement with stakeholders months ago, we are now doing that. And again, hats off. John and administration, we are now able to bring the community together, ask the right types of questions over the next week, and I applaud the administration for doing that. Ask all the questions you possibly can over the next week. Get involved, understand how these are spent. I think that what we're going to learn is they're being spent on some really, really good things for the students. I think that's what we're going to learn. But if there's any additional questions that you have, please keep digging. That's all I have.
I do have a question about that. It is taxpayer money. If we leave the ESSER funds and don't take them, that taxpayer money just goes to other schools, or we just don't take it, right?
Right, it stays at the state level.
Okay.
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. Let's call the roll.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
The next item is the approval of the resolution accepting the amounts and rates.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the resolution accepting the amounts and rates as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion?
Yeah, this is an annual resolution that we bring to the board that we require to do by April 1st. The Claremont County Budget Commission sets the tax rates, and then they come before the board for approval. You're basically setting the tax rates. You're basically telling the county to collect taxes on our behalf, is what you're doing.
Okay. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Next item is the approval of the motion amending and rescinding the resolution 21-12-16E3 and pledging transfer 1/2 of the 1 mil of inside millage currently authorized for the permanent improvement use form, the district's permanent improvement fund, to the district's half-mil maintenance tax fund. I'll explain it.
That was a mouthful.
Yes.
We need a motion to approve the resolution as Mr. Rabe just
So
outlined.
moved.
Second?
Okay. What this is when we got into the OFCC project, part of the OFCC project is they mandate that you have at least a $500,000 that goes into the maintenance fund. If you look at our funds, it goes into the 034 fund. You have to keep that for 23 years. So obviously, the projects that we've done in the past, we've had that $500,000 in the maintenance fund, but because it's due to expire and we're going with a new project with OFCC, we're simply extending it even further. The reason why it says rescind, we did this in we did this in December. OFCC got the resolution. They said, we just like you to tweak some of the language, so they retweaked the language, and that's why it's coming to you again. So that's why it says new motion and a rescind of a motion. But that's simply all it is. We're just extending that $500,000 into that maintenance fund.
So we've extended out to 2034,
2044, I believe it is. 44.
44.
You'll-
yeah.
Even
It
though
was
the
in
bonds,
40 somewhere.
yeah, even though the bonds go 30 years, you only have to maintain the maintenance fund for 23 years.
Correct. Okay, any other discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Next item is the approval of disposal of fixed assets.
Okay, we need a motion to approve for the disposal of fixed assets as you received in your package.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
These are a number of items that we have on our fixed asset that are broken or outdated. Because they're on our fixed assets, we have to come to the board before we can dispose of them.
Yeah, I think one of them was probably a projector.
There was some projector, there was an ice machine, there was
Beta tape
a
players.
carpet extractor was the other one.
Beta tape players and.
Yeah.
Brian, how do we normally dispose of these? How would they be?
Typically, if they're broken, we'll throw them in the dumpster and get rid of them. But if there is any type of value, we attempt to sell them. But if we can't sell them, then that's typically where they end up.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion. We've had discussion. Let's vote.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
The final item is the approval of a donation of $20,000 from FC Cincinnati for the charity Lucas Field.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the donation from FC Cincinnati for Cherry Lucas Field Turf Project.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? I think I heard in the Central Committee meeting yesterday from the booster president that there's only like $50,000 for this entire project that's unaccounted for in our hands, and they had a plan to finish that off come in May. So, and that'll be before we're even ready for that last draw on that turf. So, all things are good. Did I ask for a motion?
I have a motion and a second. We just need a roll.
Okay, call the roll.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving forward to Section E, Human Resources Business, Superintendent John Spicer.
Thank you, President Miranda, members of the board. Under certified personnel approvals, I do have 3 items for you. Item A, approval of certified resignations. Item B, approval to pay the following certified employees a stipend for mentoring student teachers. That is flow-through money. Item C, approval of substitute teacher rate changes. And I would also like to note, under A, we have 2 resignations due to retirement. I'd like to thank Kathleen Clark for her 18 years of service and Deb Johnson at Pattison for 35 years.
75 years. Okay, we need a motion to approve the certified personnel approvals here for item 1A through C.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Just a hearty congratulations to Ms. Clark and Ms. Johnson.
Yeah, they've been at it for a while.
Say hi.
It's wonderful. Okay, I think we've got this. Let's call the roll.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 2, under exempt personnel approvals, we do have one approval of an exempt resignation. I would like to note that Mr. Walker is leaving us to become an assistant treasurer at Lebanon. He'll be missed.
I know he's had good training here to step from the role he's in now to that next role, so congratulations to him.
Yes.
I need a motion to approve the exempt personnel.
So
case
moved.
here.
Second.
Discussion?
Even if we vote no, he can still leave, right?
Yes, he could still leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to see the people that you have do better, and sometimes they need to do better than another district because there just aren't openings. There aren't enough openings here, so congratulations to him, and hopefully we move forward. Will you
Wait.
call the roll, please?
Really quick, John,
Yes, sir.
a quick comment about his backfill and the process.
Yes, so Brian
Brian.
can fill that in. I'll just let Brian talk.
You got it. So we did put it out on Apple Track, which is our district. We also threw it out on Indeed. It's kind of a shock because it was the first time we had Indeed. We had over 120 people apply on Indeed. We had, we had close to 10 that applied through Apple Tracks. We did do 2 interviews. Yesterday, we have 1 interview scheduled for Friday, and then we have final interviews scheduled for Thursday and Friday of next week. So, yeah, we're trying to move fairly quickly.
And our hope is to fill that role prior to the end of school so we can get a couple months in of training before next year, correct?
Yeah, so.
Ideally.
So Brad's actually leaving us, his last day is Monday. So the, obviously, the people that we have in office will pick up some of the slack until we find that person. Also, the outside agency that we deal with that does all our training for our software and stuff, they have already said if you need us to come into the office to run a payroll, to help you run a payroll, they are there to help us walk us through the process, and then train this person once this person's in place. So we have been talking since he turned in his resignation to make sure we had a plan together so that when he walked out the door, we knew exactly where we were going and what we needed to do, so that obviously payroll's a big one. People want to get paid, and that's one you can't really mess up. So, yeah, we've got a plan.
Great, thank you.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 3, classified personnel approvals, we do have 3. Under item A, approval of classified resignations. Would like to note Debbie Barch, teacher aide, 21 years of service. She'll be retiring as well. Under item B, approval of classified hiring recommendations for the 21-22 school year. And C, approval of classified substitute hiring for the 21-22 school year.
I need a motion for classified personnel approvals.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion?
I'd be remiss to not say congrats to Ms. Barsh.
Yeah.
That's 21 years of good.
It's interesting. I know, just happened this month, I know those 2 people with 35 and 21 years personally, and just seems like yesterday they were just young kids. And now they're mature kids. So, yes, congratulations to them. So we have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Ms. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 4, supplemental personnel approvals, do have some for your approval. Under item A, non-renewal of people activity supervisor contracts. Those are all winter sports. We do that. Has nothing to do with performance. Item B, approval of extracurricular people activity resignations for the 21-22 school year. Noting that Joe Cameron, basketball coach, is retiring from basketball but not from teaching. Item C, approval of extracurricular people activity contract recommendations for the 21-22 school year. Item D, approval of building supplemental resignations. And item E, approval of building supplemental and student activity contract recommendations.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the supplemental personnel items listed here, items A4, A through E.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a quick about Coach Cameron. Just thank you, Coach, for several years. And if there's an update on the process for replacing Coach, that'd be helpful.
Yes, there is a process. Aaron Zupka, Jenny Barkley, Assistant Superintendent, Director, of Human Resources. They have a process. There's a large committee with input, and I don't know if they've got it narrowed down through a paper screen just yet, but that will be happening next week. I believe it's next week, right, Jenny? March 22nd.
And Jenny, didn't we have 9 or 10?
We had
10.
10 candidates.
10 candidates. Okay.
We are interviewing for 2 30 days, so I think there's 5 or 6 of them that we're bringing in for the first round.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Joe has been around for a long time and been helpful in all things athletic, including flight night and being out at the football field and everything else. So congratulations to him on a great career as a coach, and we move forward and we find another great coach. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under number 5, unpaid leave of absence, asking for your approval of item A, approval of unpaid leave of absence.
We need a motion to approve an unpaid leave of absence for the people listed below.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. We now move on to curriculum instruction. Once again, Superintendent John Spicer.
Thank you, President Miranda. Members of the board, under number 1, approval of curriculum pay, asking for item A, approval of curriculum pay not to exceed 10 hours to complete the required Title I audit, Title I federal funds. Item B, approval of curriculum pay not to exceed 2 hours for the following employees to complete the online training modules to facilitate the Iowa COGAT gifted assessment. Title IIA federal funds will be used for that. Item C, approval of curriculum pay not to exceed 18.5 hours for the following employees to complete teach training IDEA federal funds. And D, approval of curriculum pay not to exceed 15 hours to complete the annual Ohio Longitudinal Transition Survey, IDEA federal funds to be used.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the curriculum pay as outlined by Mr. Spicer.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 2, approval of foreign exchange student, asking for your approval of Blanca Jimenez Perez to attend Milford High School as a foreign exchange student for the 22-23 school year, in accordance with the Board of Education policy JECBA. And she is from Spain and wants to do a lot of community service.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the foreign exchange student. I'm not going to even try to pronounce all that.
Thank you.
But,
So moved.
Very good.
Second.
Discussion?
Is she, which number is she? We can have up to 4, and she's 2. Okay.
Okay, do we have anybody else that's applied or is thinking of applying that we're aware of?
We get them as they come, and so we do not have any more at this time. But my guess is, as COVID breaks, et cetera, we'll probably get more.
Okay. Fine, thank you. Let's call the roll.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 3, summer school fees, I'm asking for your approval of item A, credit recoupment, no charge as it is part of the learning loss plan. Item B, original credit, and item C, out-of-district students.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the summer school fees.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Are the credit recoupment, are those typically classes we charge for, or no? Not the credit recruitment? We can use CARES money at this point, but if it was a non-COVID year, remember when those
I'm going to let
happened?
Paul talk about summer school because that's his faves.
Because he spent so many years in summer school himself.
As the principal.
Yikes.
As the principal. Qualifier.
Yikes. So we used to charge per license. So if you were taking original credit or credit recoupment, we charge per license. It's actually cheaper for the district to buy a site license for the year for any medical situations or to use out of the academy. We generally charge a very small fee to cover staffing. Our goal in credit recovery prior, as Jerry says, with strings attached, is to break even in summer school. So we charge a smaller fee to break even because if not, the general fund is funding those staff members that we wouldn't normally be paying. We do curriculum pay per hour, so that's $25 an hour. So it's a smaller cost to the district. So where we used to charge about $175 per license, for credit recoupment because the ultimate goal is to get kids to graduate and to be caught up and be put back on a path for success. We used to charge $50 per course.
Okay.
So once COVID money runs out, because this is part of our learning loss plan, we will go back to charging $50. It is our hope that through, as Jenny challenges us all the time, through open opportunities in the high school, that we would be able to do this and never actually have to have summer school for credit recovery.
Okay, any other discussion? Call the roll.
Ms. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Now go on to business operations. Once again, Superintendent Jones Spicer.
Thank you, President Miranda, members of the board. Under item 1, asking you to deem transportation impractical for number 1.
I need a motion to deem transportation impractical as listed here in item 1.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Okay, brings us toward the end of the meeting. We come to our second public participation. Do we have some?
Yes.
I believe we do there, right?
Yes. Paul Chambers?
Paul Chambers, 990 Business 2841. I have 2 matters to present to you today. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. It is my hope. I do speak somewhat loud, Coach, but thank you. It is my hope to show the correlation between the 2 things I'm going to speak on tonight, and I want to make it clear through direct and indirect points that we do have a problem in Milford schools. To quote George Orwell, in a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. As some of you already know, I am an educator. I'm also a father and a coach and a small business owner. A lot of my time is spent in people in the community, whether in the classroom or out in public. People talk, and I like to listen. Just the other day, a customer of mine, a sweet little old lady, told me about a time 20 years ago when her son, who graduated from Milford High School, struggled as a student. Being an openly gay young man back then must have been quite a struggle. The mom went on to tell me things that he still struggles with today because of the continued bullying and harassment that he has endured. I myself have experienced extreme bullying. From a very early age. And I laugh at him now, so I'm trying to make light of it and make fun of it. I apologize. In 3rd grade, I was made fun of for bringing a plush Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle doll to school. Because of the excitement over a pep rally where a man dressed as a Ninja Turtle was going to be appearing that day. As we stood in line at the door to go to the pep rally, the whole class, including my teacher, made fun of me. This was not at Milford, just to make that clear. You can understand how meeting a hero of mine might have been overshadowed by a classroom poking fun at something so simple. Later, being pushed into lockers, literally, picked on, punched, cornered in a bathroom by several of my peers. Beat up for standing up for some of my friends that got bullied. Seemed like it would never end. Fast forward, I to this day think of my 6th grade science teacher telling me not to stand up for myself and others. Even though I did so, and I tried intervening on a known bully in our classroom, knocking books out of a kid's hands. She said, although admirable, I may find myself in a bad spot later. That spot was when those kids cornered me in the bathroom. Thankfully, a teacher came to my rescue. Might be a reason why I became an educator. Many other reasons. I continued to try to stand up for others, and I took it upon myself later in my junior high years to finally say enough was enough.
30 seconds.
I asked for extended time, please, thank you. And stand up for myself. I haven't stopped since. Today on social media, there are endless amounts of posts from former and current students that have attended Milford schools and they're experiencing bullying. Parents are posting on how the principals and the administration do nothing or play it off as a matter as something that it's a work in progress. Well, I'm here today to tell you that this needs to be a solution in progress, and it needs to start at the top. Bullying doesn't just end on the playgrounds, and I will try to speed up, I apologize. It doesn't just end on the playgrounds. It's in our classrooms, in our community, on social media, and in our homes. As educators, and as I swore when I became a teacher, that I was going to provide the safest, secured, loving environment for our students. You can ask many of my previous students if this is what they experienced, and they will most surely tell you yes. I'd like to toot my own horn in saying with a sense of pride that countless times as a long-term sub in this district where my students begged and pleaded for me to stay longer. I'm also quite well known at Milford Junior High as Mr. Clean. A badge of honor I carry because of my nickname that was given to me one day and it just stuck. Funny how a simple nickname can provide me with so much joy and great relationships with my students, their parents, and others in the district. However, there are some in this district that take personal, political, and emotional opinions a little too far. Recently, at the conclusion of this long-term subbing position with the district, I spoke up about some things I felt needed to be addressed before moving forward. A little context, I'll again try to speed up. I was contacted about a long-term building sub position for the school year, although my final goal was to become an actual teacher, a full-time teacher, and get out of the subbing position that I was offered. I gratefully accepted the position. This position came with no documentation, no explanation of expectations, and no ideas that I would be moved into another role. However, being the person I am and wanting to do what I thought was best, and I tried to reach that final goal, I accepted this appointed long-term position at the high school in November and completed that role. I then wrote to Assistant Superintendent Ms. Jeannie Berkeley and Superintendent John Spicer, expressing my desire to have an evaluation of my current and future employment of the district. In this email, I wrote about current bullying and harassment in our hallways, in other classrooms, and by some in the district, that being by some in our administration. The feeling I received in response was a quick, sorry, we wish you would have spoken up earlier. Please show up and get back to work. And I do have the documentations if anybody would like copies. This was followed by a text that I sent to our principal that same night to Miss Misty Getz, pertaining, again, the quote in the text, pertaining to Mr. Jenny Berkeley's email, I will not be in tomorrow. My hope was that someone would, in the next day or so, reach out and have an understanding that we needed a conversation. That conversation never occurred. Instead, my district access that I've had over 2 years now, through Google Docs, email, other things, was revoked, and I was out. Fast forward just 2 weeks ago, I asked our head football coach if he was still offering me the head football coach for the freshman squad for next year. I will say, Mr. Tom Grippa was the only person that reached out to me to ask if everything was okay. Apologize, I lost my spot. Mr. Grippa then responded that it was a very odd statement, but he said to non-renew you is not my call. I let them know that I wanted you back, but my bosses said no. A vast majority of the varsity coaching staff is neither a teacher or a person in the district. Now, in addition to that text, my son has been alienated from the football team. As Mr. Grippa has all but told us, good luck, and he expects my son to play elsewhere next season, his senior season. I have 2 paragraphs left just to let you know. Let's rewind back to the email I mentioned earlier. It states we do, as Ms. Jeannie Berkeley, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. We do certainly appreciate my role and other roles of our building subs and your specific flexibility to transition and cover at the high school. I have a prominent and distinguished record at Milford Exempted School District. And I think that email and the relationships I have with my students further expresses that. So ask yourself this question: why does our administration not bring me back? There are other emails with rude and inconsiderate responses from Ms. Berkeley, and so a track record has developed. Our current political environment needs no further acknowledgement. It's fairly dirty. Our superintendent invokes a mask mandate in January and yet, hypocritically, doesn't wear a mask in our January school board meeting. Good for thee and not for me. Thank you to our 2 school board members that Ms. Chestnut and Ms. Mason, that did lead by example in wearing their masks that day. I applaud you. Our students, our children are being led by those that have personal interest in mind. The political hate that some in this room have exuded in public, specifically someone that has an absolute hate and disdain for Mr. Jerry Combs, continues to sit in this room and, by own admission, fact check our school board members. It is time that those of us in control of what we can control do something. Bullying and harassment is an issue far greater than any personal or political opinion. Our young generation's struggle with anxiety, depression, and suicide is not getting better. Add issues that the recent pandemic has caused, and the results, those haven't even been seen yet. I'm calling for the district to be a trendsetter. I'm calling for more at the top to be done, as you're the ones in a position to do something. Stop with the personal attacks, stop with the hate, and let's build a better community for everyone. I would also like to request a little further investigation by our board or an outside committee in a matter involving my employment with the district. To also quote Ms. Abigail Adams, you need not quote great men to show that you are one. She was right, because I'm still standing up. Thank you.
Randy Klein.
Randy Klein. I'm a grandfather of student in the district, and been here since 1997, 939 Riverside Drive here in Milford. That was a serious bit there, Mr. Chambers. Thank you for sharing. I was really happy to see the kids doing the Little Mermaid, because, you know, Disney World bills itself as the happiest place on earth. Well, we'd like to see Milford be a happy place. That's what we want. And goodwill and morale go a long way towards things being happy. Myself, my brothers and I ran a business for 46 years. We upped up to 35 employees, so we know what goodwill and morale means when you're running an organization. Now, it was, thank you, Mr. Rabe. Brian Rabe sent me a copy of a report that was mentioned in the December board meeting by Andrea Brady. And so I asked Mr. Rabe to send a copy to me, because that really caught my attention. Why did Andrea, I respect Andrea, because Andrea was someone who tried to solve problems as they came along, even though I didn't always agree with her solutions. But this report has to do with the school board, because most employment issues the school board has nothing to do with. But they do have oversight over the superintendent and their treasurer. That's one of their main responsibilities. There was a report by Strategic HR Incorporated that was generated last year that Andrea mentioned in regard to a raise that was given. Well, the raise is one thing, but after reading the report that Mr. Rabe sent me, that's a very minor part of this issue. The raise is like almost nothing compared to what the report talks about. So I would recommend any of you here who want to know what's going on here to ask Mr. Rabe for a copy of Strategic HR's report.
30 seconds.
No, I'm not done. You gave this fellow extra time. Now, I want to read a couple of just brief sentences out of this report, just to give you an idea how serious this is. Behavioral concerns were a common theme throughout our superintendent assessments. Given the magnitude of these concerns, it is our recommendation for legal reasons and for the health of the district as a whole that this be taken very seriously. As we have seen in recent reports throughout the nation, from coaches to executives to leaders of schools, these types of behaviors will no longer be tolerated. Now, this is what they call for after making that statement. Due to the unprofessional and disrespectful behaviors that have been pervasive and unfortunately allowed throughout the district, as they have trickled down from the superintendent and his cabinet, we are highly recommending that the district implement a cultural competency journey such as Focus 3 as soon as possible. Now, this was presented in December by Andrea Brady about this report. I have heard nothing from the board in January. I have not heard nothing from the board in February. So is this board going to take this seriously, or are they not going to take it seriously? And I would like to see an agenda item put on our agenda dealing with this for the next several months to see what the progress is and let the community know what's going on. And I think what Mr. Chambers just brought up is, I didn't even know he was going to talk about this. But we've heard other people ourselves talk about it, not Mr. Chambers. I've never talked to him about this. So anyway, that's all I have to say. I would like to see some serious work regarding this issue, because I believe that anybody can be helped and counseled and brought back into a better frame of mind and a better way of behaving and operating. I really believe that, because I've seen it happen even in our own business of employees that were restored by proper follow-up. Thank you.
Nicole Nickley.
Okay, so what I'm about to talk about basically piggybacks off of what the two gentlemen have already mentioned, but it involves more of the reading materials that the students are provided at the junior high. This week, we were notified the book choices for my 8th grade student. And basically, most of the book choices contain kissing, dating, drinking. Many contain violence, drugs, alcohol, stealing, sexual content, and many are dark and inappropriate for our kids of this age. My daughter is 13 years old, and we're not ready to talk about doing these type of things or having these images in her mind. It's almost like a full-time job trying to protect my teenager between what's happening at school, their educational materials, social media. These things are hard to protect your child from. And if we're giving it to them in their curriculum, one of the books is about bullying. So, you know, why do we need to be reading these things? So I encourage all of you to, I sent all the school board members an email this week with some of my concerns, and I'll get you guys the list of book materials that were given. The teacher is working with us on alternative books, but one of the main concerns is my daughter just wants to go in and lay low. She doesn't want attention drawn to her because of the bullies, because of the judgment. And she's a good kid. She's got straight A's, and she's very talented, but she doesn't want to go to school. She wants to homeschool, and I think if we can work on looking at the curriculum and what the content is that the students are reading, maybe that will help create a more positive learning environment for these kids. So, for example, one of the books, the title is Gone, and some of the reviews that I've read about it is they're talking about the boyfriend is drinking vodka and wine, and it's enough to give him a hangover.
30 seconds.
And then also they stole some prescription drugs, and we're taking those. And then it also talks about, in this book, that the character describes the science teacher molested her in a closet. And this is a book that my 13-year-old could read. So it's a little alarming that this is an option for my child to read. This is actually the choice that she picked. And in the description from the teacher, it does not say any of these things. We did our own homework after being burned last year on another book, where it has, at the end of the book, another girl kissing a girl. And so then there was more to explain with that. But I just want that for this to be looked at. I know ELA is in the curriculum for revision, and there's a lot of things I think we can do to improve this. One being there being parents curriculum committee to look over the materials and for these things to be discussed. So I feel like there needs to be more options for the kids that are positive without the bad language, sex, and violence. And so my child doesn't have to be singled out for not choosing one of these options and having to read by herself in the groups. So basically this round is they're reading in groups and discussing the book on their own in the classroom, and my child's going to be singled out and be by herself. And I did, Ms. Mason did email me back, and she's going to look into the materials as well. And I'm going to reply to her email. So I just want to make sure that these things are being looked at, and
we have received the emails
Yes.
and the responses all the way down the
Okay.
line. So
Okay.
reiterating it is kind of a redundancy here for the board. So if you could move on,
Okay.
please.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Jolie Dembo.
And before we start here, you're gonna be the unlucky person. This is meant to be 3 minutes. I had a request from one individual for a little bit more time, and we gave him some latitude. Now everyone's taking latitude. We're gonna go back to 3 minutes, please. if you
Mine will
could.
be quick.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not a public speaker. I live at 970 Hollow Creek Drive. We have also noticed the past couple of years that the reading list for junior high and high school honors English classes include books with swearing, sexually explicit content, and very dark themes. I now have boys in 8th and 10th grade, and we fully acknowledge that everyone doesn't share the same values. But it would be really helpful if the book list included at least a couple options representing homes with more traditional conservative values. There are hundreds of amazing books out there that we could be choosing from. I'm very, very appreciative that my kids' teachers have been accommodating when they've asked for something different, but it does put our kids in an awkward position in the classroom. When the selections presented don't include values shared by families like ours, it not only makes our kids feel marginalized, but we wonder why the same inclusion isn't being shown across the board. Please consider that a couple books be added to each list that would be appropriate for all families represented. Thank you for working so hard for our kids.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Moving along, our next regular board meeting is April 21st, 2022, 6 p.m. in this room. And I'm going to move forward with any discussion from the board, the dais here.
I do if none of you do.
You go ahead, I'm going to finish.
Okay. So last board meeting, the board talked about an RFP for an attorney, putting out an RFP. I did send out a statewide email to my organization, which is treasurers, business managers, so on and so forth. Mrs. Berkeley sent one out to her HR community group, and Mr. Johnson sent one out to his business manager group. We've gotten no replies of anyone that has an RFP. The few replies that I did receive were that they used a small group of administrators and a board member or two, brought various attorneys in and had conversations with them and went that way with it. So obviously we don't have a formal RFP, so just trying to get an idea, direction, which way the board wants to go as far as interviewing attorneys. We can reach out to certain ones that we know of based upon what we can find through OSBA. We can go that way with it, but just looking for some guidance or direction where you want to go next.
Yeah, I'm one of the proponents of looking at alternatives.
Sure.
So I'm surprised that you've gotten 0 from 3 outreach. That doesn't mean it's not true. I'm just surprised.
Right.
So I think that I'm personally going to have to step in and at least try to find 3 or 4 others that we can take a look at. And I like the idea of bringing them in front of a select group. I want to be a part of that. Sure. And I'll say publicly, I'm going to get involved.
Could we go forward and reach out to the OSBA and see what they recommend?
Yeah, OSBA was on the list, and I didn't hear anything
Oh,
from
okay.
them. So I'll
Okay.
go back and reach out. But OSBA, because they have their annual capital conference in their vendor list, they, obviously, all the school district attorneys across the state have a booth there, so I can pull who those list of attorneys are across the state.
Okay.
So I can at least pull a list of some. I can't say it's going to be everyone, but I can at least get a start of a list for you.
I think that would be helpful.
That'd be a good place to start.
I agree. And just to be clear, we don't believe that there's a problem with our current attorney. We believe that after 20 years, we should at least take a look and find out if there's someone else that could serve us better. We may find out that that's not the case. But it just seems to be long overdue after 20 years, candidly. And it may be longer than 20, Brian, right?
Right, yeah.
So it's 20 that we know of.
Right.
That's all.
How many attorneys are there that are qualified to be school board attorneys? Wait, I
specialize.
I can't ask Joe on the corner who's an attorney.
There's nobody in Cincinnati in terms of a firm in Cincinnati other than Ennis and Britton, which we use. There, Peppel and Wagner, I think, has an office in Cincinnati, but all of the people are in Columbus or Cleveland. So it's the only firm in Cincinnati that has people in Cincinnati and Columbus and Cleveland, and the firm did start here in Cincinnati.
And I think I did a little bit of research back right around Capitol Conference, probably a little bit before Capitol Conference, and there's really only about 3 names that come up as attorneys that specialize in school districts. So,
Okay, I'll pull a list together and I'll get that for you.
Thank you.
That'd be great.
that'd be a good start. I think somewhere down the line, we're probably going to go into some form of executive session and talk to these folks.
No problem.
And much like an interview when we interview somebody from the outside community. So.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I do have a few items for the board and for the community this evening. Did have a conversation today with Julianne Nesbitt, our Commissioner of Public Health in Claremont County. Unable to report cases today because the numbers are so low that if she were to report cases that it could be people could be identifiable, but on average 1 to 2 children per day, kids, if you will. That's a loose term, but probably 1 to 17, if you will. So 1 to 2 per day. The Public Health has archived their COVID charts. After today, we will do the same. Our COVID chart does list 1 staff member as positive today. So, and lots of zeros. So that's our COVID update. Just a reminder that Monday is World Down Syndrome Day, and we will celebrate that across the district. Wear your crazy socks and other stuff. Also, just a reminder about the thought exchange that we have out there right now. That will be our focus for our Facebook Live event for next week. So please get on there. Looking forward to that. And then finally, just wanted to reiterate to the board our work with Battelle for Kids, a nonprofit. We began our work with Battelle to do our Portrait of an Eagle. Our Portrait of an Eagle lives inside of our strategic plan, and this strategic plan was created a few years ago by a wide representation of our school community. Within that, Battelle for Kids, we've been a part of the SOAR network with Battelle for probably 5 or 6 years. The SOAR network is a professional learning network of visionary leaders that work together to transform education. I'm just reading this verbatim. Network members work together with other innovative school systems to share and learn from one another to equip educators to advance deeper learning experiences for every student in our district. And from that, we have been given the opportunity to choose focus areas. And for the past 4 years, our focus areas have been high school redesign. And within the high school redesign, we had things like our Second Chance Breakfast, our Eagle Block. We had a master schedule rebuild. We had some new quarter credits, electives, if you will. We've also taken a look at assessment and deeper learning. And this year, we selected back in May, we selected Reimagining Human Capital Systems. In our group, attending that is Paul Daniels, Jenny Berkeley, Melissa Caraher. Melissa is the principal at SIPO. Misty Getz, principal at the junior high. Rob Dunn, and myself. We have been discussing things like Portrait of an Educator, what an educator might look like as it ties into Portrait of an Eagle. We are reevaluating our current screener that we use for our hiring processes for teachers. We have used a research-based screener in the past. Everybody gets the same screener, same questions, but we have decided through the help of Battelle for Kids, Tony Bagshaw and Steve Fuji are their 2 experts in human capital and human capital research. They're experts with Gallup as well, and what that does. So we're going to begin to go back to the Gallup Teacher Insight. And so we'll have some training for our admin staff, our principals, to be able to give this teacher insight. And the insight also helps, it evolves with the trends in education. So we're pretty excited about that opportunity for this spring. We do have, during spring break is our first opportunity to start to have discussions with students at Miami University. It'll be the first job fair that we get to go to, and it's always exciting. And so our focus areas are going to be to focus on keep, grow, find, and align. I have some information I can share with the board about that as well. And so working with Tony and Steve has given us an opportunity to dig into our top workplace data and culture. And once again, Milford was selected as a top workplace, so we're pretty proud of that. So the plan would be to present to the board, starting small, focusing on the district central office data, taking a look at that from top workplaces. And the best way for us to do that is to measure employee engagement. And so we'll do that. There'll be a 3-year plan. In that 3-year plan, we'll start with central office. We'll move to probably 3 other elementary schools, perhaps the year after, dig into their data as well. And then year 3, we'll be all in looking at our different data points with our principals and our staff and looking at employee engagement. We will be implementing stay interviews. That'll be a part of our process with our new communications person when they come in. That'll be part of their, what we like for them to do is to do some of these, what we call stay interviews, people that have been here a long time, why did they stay here for such a long time? And then also our exit interviews. So we're going to begin the process of conducting exit interviews. Brad will be one of our first ones, if you will, down the road here, and so we're excited about that, and that's where we are. Also brought this evening a book that Jenny and I are reading, also was part of the SOAR Network, The Leader's Guide to Work in an Age of Upheaval. It's called Reset. The author is Johnny C. Taylor, Jr. He is the president and CEO of Society for Human Resource Management, and it's been a great read and a great opportunity to have great dialogue with about 16 to 18 other superintendents across Ohio regarding this. With that, I'm done.
I'd like to speak to the COVID
Yes.
numbers. I think it's great
Yes.
that we're finally coming down off that, off the 2-year journey that we've been on. And I appreciate all the work that's been put in. And then, I called John when this came up. I totally agree with, relaxing things and letting families do what they feel comfortable with. And we have the systems in place that whatever's after Omicron, I don't know what it is, comes back and we need to re-implement, we can do that. But I think that it's not needed at this time.
Your work with Battelle?
Yes, sir.
And the employee engagement, are these going to be a round of surveys that they're going to be launching into the workforce?
Not initially, no. So the initial work will be to dig into our data and to see what it says and kind of go from there. The hope would be to present that to the board. I would have Steve and Tony come and speak with you maybe at the April board meeting.
And applauding, we talked about this in the committee meeting, but the stay and exit interviews are really powerful. And I'm going to be very interested in understanding what some of the insights are. Jenny, I'm looking at you because we talked openly about it in committee, that we gained from both of those. We can learn a lot through both, and thank you for that effort, because it's a proven best practice for, candidly, decades in other orgs, so thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, it comes down to me, and I committed to do a good news report, so we will leave you with the good news of the district as best I can do here, and a couple of these are redundant, but most aren't, actually. The Milford Exempted School District just got a $20,000 donation from FC Cincinnati to work on Charity Lucas Field. That helps us finish that project. Number 2, We have a student from the Milford Junior High, Chloe Call, who's advanced in the WCPO Channel 9 Scripps Howard Regional Spelling Bee, which is the 19th, which would be Saturday. Talk a little bit about DECA. We had 38 DECA students competed in the state conference in Columbus. Out of those 38, 3 of them have advanced to the national conference in Atlanta, which is in April. It's April 23rd to 26th. We won't have those results for the April meeting, but we'll certainly share what they accomplished in the May meeting. Josh Kaufman spoke to this briefly. The Milford High School Choir is traveling to Nashville March 24th through the 27th, so that is next week. And they'll be performing at Vanderbilt University. They'll be recorded at the RCA studios there, which is a huge studio. If you want to go back, you can find people in there like Elvis Presley and things like that. I believe they also have a little outing where they're going to go to the Grand Ole Opry as well. And it's just a great experience for our kids to get to go down there and perform and get to see those things. We have 10 Milford High School students in the Teaching Academy that qualified to move on to the national level of the Ohio Educators Rising Conference in Washington, D.C., and that is in June. That's June 24th through June 27th. We had 5 Milford robotics teams qualify for the 2022 World Championships in Dallas. Junior high, the middle schools will compete May 2nd through the 5th, and the high schools overlap that a little bit, the 4th through the 8th of May. Now there's some accolades for some of our teachers. Betsy Woods, who's the ELA department chair at the high school, was published in the the Journal of the National Council of Teachers of English. That's very, very large. That's a very prestigious journal. Also, and I'm going to wreck this name, Rachel Wiemken. She's a mathematics teacher at the high school, was also published in the Journal of the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. We also had 2 individuals, Tim Pope, who's a junior high intervention specialist, and Lauren Cooper, who's a junior high math teacher, led a conference. Where did I go? I'm sorry, don't touch the screen. Led a conference for their peers at the Ohio Council of Teachers of Mathematics in Cincinnati. And we spoke a little bit about this last month, but I'm going to keep this in front of us as well. Milford Athletics have had a fantastic fall. They had a fantastic winter as well. We're currently in first place in the ECC All-Sport Trophy. We've never won an All-Sport Trophy in the ECC. We won one in 2008, 2009 in the old FAVC League. We're looking for a first time in this league, and the spring sports are going to be key for us winning, obviously. And the key word is every chance you get, beat Turpin. Because they're in second place, they're about 7 points behind us. So that's exciting for all the athletes, and that's something that all the athletes work together on, and they're very knowledgeable of where they are as a group, and they encourage each other to do better. Dates to remember: we had the Little Mermaid presentation tonight. What a nice show! I felt like I was in the show because I was sitting in the front row. I'm going to be there tomorrow night with 3 family members watching that. Their first performance, it's the first performance of our new theater director, David Derringer, who was sitting next to me in the front row. The Friday night, as they said, is sold out, and the 2 Saturday performances, the matinee and the evening show, are getting really close. So when you leave here, get online and get your tickets if you want to see that. Milford Senior Awards, April 21st. Milford Fine Arts Fair, April 29th and 30th. Both of those are taking place at the high school. Teacher Appreciation Day is March 3rd, 2022, all around the district. Once again, this year, we'll be honoring all our teachers and our staff in a celebration of excellence, and we'll provide you some more details.
Is that April? You said March.
Did I say March? It's May.
May, okay.
It's one of those months. May 3rd, I'm sorry.
You haven't missed it.
we'll be able to provide a lot more detail on that come the meeting on the 21st of April.
We're going to meet with principals next week on Tuesday, and that'll be a small part of our discussion about how we're going to do that celebration. Last year was a video, and so we're going to try something new, I think, this year.
Okay. Let's see, Milford Flight Night, we talked about this last month, May the 12th, 2022. A couple of weeks ago, they did announce their guest speakers. It's the introductory speaker is going to be Jim Breach, who was a kicker forever for the Cincinnati Bengals. And the keynote speaker is going to be one Anthony Munoz, the only Bengal who's in the NFL Hall of Fame. So that'll be a good time, and we don't have any restrictions on how many people can come other than the size of the room. Last year we had some COVID restrictions that kept us a little bit under, so that's going to be a huge event. Graduation is the 21st at the Cintas Center at 4 p.m. And the last day of school is May 26th, and I believe, if I remember correctly, that always coincides with the Frontier Days Parade. So we give a little shout out to the city as well. And I'm sure everybody's looking forward to the last day of school and getting a chance to have their kids home and not be running them to everywhere for a little while. So that's what I have. It's a lot of stuff. I apologize for that being long, but the community hears all kinds of things. They should also hear the good news. That's my intention here, and I'm going to keep doing this until they drag me off this dais. So that's all I have. Does anybody else have anything else? Okay. We are going to, as a board, go into executive session following this meeting. We're going to need a motion here in a minute. The motion is to enter into executive session for the purpose of considering the employment and compensation of a public employee and collective bargaining matters. We will be coming back into this room, but I can't tell you when it's going to be. It's probably going to be an hour or an hour and a half. If you want to sit here to watch us adjourn the meeting, that would be fine. I would suggest you go home and watch the NCAA, and then you can tell me about it. So that is it. I now need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
There can't be any discussion, so let's call the roll.
Mr. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.